Hello, 7th grade. It's Miss Odell, and today our lesson is going to be beginning on page 8, and it's titled Numbers. But we're going to be talking about the types of numbers, a number line, absolute value, comparing numbers, some integers, and positive and negative numbers, and so forth. You'll see as we go through. All right, so if you will open up your math book to page 8 with me. All right, we're going to go through this together, and then we're going to work some out together and talk through some. All right, so let's look at the top of the page where it says types of numbers. All right, first of all, we have counting numbers. And if you want to highlight this as we go, you can. They are natural numbers that are represented, of course, by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. Notice that the counting numbers are not decimals or fractions. They are just whole numbers, okay? If 0 is included in the counting numbers, those numbers would be called whole numbers. So counting numbers are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so on. Whole numbers are those same numbers, but they include zeros. Now, although the number 0 means none, such as you have 0 apples, it is also used as a reference point. Now, when you're referencing something, you're referring to something. For instance, the Celsius temperature includes a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius, okay? So the temperature of 0 is a reference point for the temperature. All right, so numbers, next paragraph, including fractions and decimals that are greater than 0 are called positive numbers. And you can imagine this in just a moment when we look at a number line. And you have positive numbers to one side of the 0 and negative numbers to the other side of the 0. So numbers including fractions and decimals that are less than 0 are positive numbers. Numbers that are greater than 0 are called positive numbers. Numbers that are less than 0 are called negative numbers. I highly recommend that you highlight these terms as we go through. Of course, a negative number has a minus sign or a negative sign. You see that right there in front of the number. So the number minus 4 is actually read as negative 4. Negative numbers are often used to denote a financial debt, like in a banking account when you're in the negative. That's not a good thing. But you always want to be in the positive. But a 0 balance means that there's no money in the account, so while a negative balance would mean that you would owe someone something. All right? Stay with me, please. All numbers except 0 are signed numbers. Remember that. All numbers except 0 are signed numbers. However, you do have integers, which include only whole numbers, and their opposite, such as such as 1 and negative 1. Those are integers, and so on. So it is important to remember, anytime you see that, you need to make sure you highlight it, that integers do not include fractions or decimals, okay? So again, here's a review of our numbers that we just talked about. And all right, so we have our counting natural numbers, our whole numbers, our positive numbers, negative numbers, and our integers. Okay, and there's notes about that, so this chart is important. Let's move to a number line. I have number lines, big number lines for each student to use, and we'll play with those when you guys come back to class next week. But right now we'll have to use our textbook and our imagination and our hand and draw some. So anyway, number line. Look right here with me at this little tire. Numbers may be plotted on a number line. A straight line, as you see here, this is a straight line, is broken into equal numbered parts. The number line extends indefinitely. So this arrow here means that it goes indefinitely, on and on and on, forever and ever and ever. Same thing here. In other words, they go on and on and on forever and ever. So the number line includes indefinitely both to the left and to the right. So both the numbers to the left of 0 are less than 0. You notice that this is your reference point, This is your left. All numbers are negative numbers. This is your reference point. All numbers to the right are positive numbers. Okay? So let's move to the next page. Any questions there, just write down and send them to me. All right, so let's look at figure 1.2. Plot the group of numbers 3.5, 6. All right, so you're going to plot 3.5, 6, -3, -3, 7.3, and 0 on the given number line. Move the 0 in the direction of the sign for each number and draw a dot. All right, this one has already been done for you, but we're going to go through it and look at it together. So 3.5. All right, so is that a positive or negative? It's a positive, so we're going to the right. Remember, this is your right and this is your left. Your left are for your negative numbers. Your positive numbers go to the right. So 3.5, you go to 3, and yeah, you can do a fraction. You can graph a fraction because 3 and then half is halfway between 3 and 4, which is right here. And notice they drew the little, put the little dot there to indicate where that number was located. +6, they went over here to +6. Now, -3, so they went to -3 here and plotted -3. Yes, you can graph a negative 7.3. So you would go to 7 and over just a little bit. It's not quite a half, but it's over just a little bit. So you want to make sure that your 7.3 is not in between -7 and -8. It's closer to the -7, but not quite all the way. All right? We'll practice some of that here in a little while. Absolute value. Now, this is important. What is an absolute value? Well, right here it is. The distance of a number from 0 to its absolute value. For instance, the value of -3 is 3. How did we get that? Well, how do we find it? It's the distance from any number, the distance of any number from 0. So the distance of any number from 0. So what is the absolute value of -3? Well, 1, 2, 3. It's +3. Okay? Another way to think of absolute value is the value of the number without its sign. The absolute value of a +5 and a -5 is 5. How do we know that? Well, the absolute value, +5 and -5. So how many places would you go? Let me change my color so you can see this. So if you have a +5, remember, you're finding that number and you're going back to the reference point, which is 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the absolute value is 5. Now remember here, the absolute value of a signed number is indicated by these two parallel signs, like a absolute value of -5 equals +5. Okay? They showed you that here. An absolute value of -4 is 4, and they found the -4, they went back to 0, and it's 4. Absolute value of +4, they go to 0, and it's 4. We'll practice some more of those as well. Counting numbers or comparing numbers, this is just where you're comparing, and remember your greater than and less than sign. Less than, greater than, or equal to. Okay? Less, greater, equal to. Okay? That's your two options. The number line makes comparing small numbers easier. For example, if you have the number 3 and -5, and you plot those, and that's exactly what they did right here. Here's 3 and -5. You can quickly see that -5 is smaller than 3, since it's to the left of 3. So the relationship between -5 and 3 would be written as, well, right here it is. -5 is less than 3, or 3 is greater than -5. Now, how do we know that? Well, these numbers are smaller, and these, if you move that way, they are larger. okay? Since it's inconvenient, do not use the number line to compare larger numbers. When comparing more than two numbers, you just simply want to order those numbers and compare them from least to greatest. All right, so let's practice some of these together, all right? And then you're going to get an assignment. Okay, guys, so here in this chart, we're going to place an X in the column that correctly describes each number. Mark all that apply. You're gonna work with me and do this all at the same time. So 112. So what is a counting number? If you need to refer back to page 8, you can. Remember, a counting number are numbers that are 1 or greater. They have no decimals and no fractions. Whole numbers are those same numbers, but it has 0. Okay, it still has no decimal and fractions, but it does include 0. Positive numbers are numbers greater than 0. So anything greater than 0 on a number line are positive numbers. Negative numbers are numbers that are less than 0. An integer is whole numbers and their opposites. There's no decimals or fractions, but -2 and 2. Those are integers of each other. Okay, so 112. Yeah, we can say that 112 is a counting number. So we're going to put an X there. Is it a whole number? Yes, it is a whole number. Would you say that it's a positive? Yes, there's not a negative in front of it, so it's a positive. It is a positive. Is it a negative? No, so leave that blank. Is it an integer? Yes, because an integer would be 112 or -112. So yes, it is an integer. Let's look at -67. Is -67 a counting number or a whole number? No, because it's got a negative. There are no negative numbers that are counting numbers or whole numbers. Is it a positive number? No, in fact, it's the opposite. It is a negative number, and yes, it is an integer. How about a -4/5? It's a fraction, so it's not counting a whole number. It has a negative sign in front, so it's not a positive, so it is a negative. Is it an integer? No. Why is it not an integer? Because there's no fractions in integers. Okay, so get that filled in. I'll give you a second to do that. Now we're going to move to the next slide. And this is where we're going to do a few more together, and then I'm going to give you an assignment. Think here. All right, yeah, I think I already do. Okay, I do. All right, but we're going to go ahead and do the top together, and then I'll give you your assignment. So 1.34. 1.34. So that is a decimal, and it's actually would be considered a fraction if you convert that to a fraction. So it can't be a whole number or a positive number, right? Remember, always refer back to your chart on page 8. It is a positive number. Yes, it's not a negative, and it's not an integer. So 1.34 would just be considered a positive number. How about 0? Well, counting numbers do not include 0, but whole numbers do. 0 is neither negative nor positive. It rests right in the middle. So it's not a negative or a positive, but it is an integer. 3.5 is a fraction, so it's not a counting or a whole number, and it is a positive. It's not a negative or an integer, so it stays in the positive section, okay? Now, let's look at the rest of this page. And I'm going to give you an assignment. It's also written in LMS. Guys, it's important that you check your LMS, go through it in depth, and please let me know if you have questions. All right, so let's look at number 9. Let's look at number 8 together. All right, I'm going to do this one with you, number 8. And I want you to do this along with me in your textbook, okay? Let me choose a pretty color to plot these. Let's just choose this pretty blue. All right, so first thing I want to do is my first number is 0. So I want to come over here and I want to put my dot by 0. And then, okay, next let's graph 4 1/5. Now think about this. Is 1/5 1/2? Or half, I'm sorry. No, it's not quite 1/2. Think about, what's the bottom number? 5. It's 1/5. So you're dividing that into 5 sections. For example, I'll just do it like this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, well that's not real good, is it? Okay, so and only one, just imagine, so only 1/5. So only one section of the 5 parts are colored in. So it's actually a very small number. So 4 1/5, and here we are. We're going to go over here to 4, and we're going to go just a little ways past 4. It's not quite 4 1/2. It's actually a lot smaller. So 4 1/5. Next, we're going to do -8. So I'm going to go find -8, and I'm going to put my my marker there, my dot. And then I'm going to find -2. I like to use different colors if you didn't notice. And it's going to be red, and I'm going to go here and find -2. And then I'm going to find, I'm sorry, ignore that, guys. That's actually a -2.2. So you go over here to 2, it's a little less than that, so it's going to be 2.2 about right there. All right, so that's how we do, how we're going to plot each group of numbers on the number line. So again, let's talk about the absolute value. Let's look at number 12 together. Guys, make sure you record this in your book so you can use it as you go through these. And you can review back to all the notes that I gave you or that's in your textbook, okay? So what is the absolute value of 21? It is 21. Absolute values are not going to be negative, and they are the distance from 0 on the number line to the number. So it would be like having a number line here, and this is 0, and you're going all the way out here, and you got 21 places. So you count 21 back here, and that makes 21. Okay? What is the absolute value of 1/2? Oh, let's go over here to 14. What's the absolute value of 45.3? Well, remember, they're not negative, and they're really just their opposites. So it's positive 45.3. When you write your answer, you don't use those two parallel lines, okay? Now, let's do some comparing. And this is your greater than or less than numbers. Let's look at number 18, 20, and 22 together, okay? So a -9 and a -4. So I'm going to draw a number line here. So this is going to be a +1, +2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This will be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, excuse my writing, -6. And if you need to draw a good old number line to do these, you go right ahead. So this -9 is down here past this number somewhere, okay? This would be number 7, number 8, and then number 9. Anyway, so, and then you're comparing that -9 to this -4. So remember, when you're moving to the right, the numbers are larger. When you're moving to the left, you're going smaller. So -9 is actually smaller than -4. So -9 is less than -4. How about number 20? 0.25 being compared to a -0.301. Well, we already know here that anytime you have a negative and a positive, oh, that's actually a positive, your negative is going to be smaller, so it's going to be greater than. Always the point goes to the smallest number. Let's do one more. -23, or the absolute value of -23 being compared to the absolute value of a -16. What is the absolute value? 23. You got to change these, okay? Absolute value is 16. So now you're comparing 23 to 16. And when you do that, then 16 is smaller and 23 is larger, so it's greater than. If these absolute value signs were not there, then it would be the opposite, okay? Now, one of the last things you're going to do here is you're going to be ordering numbers from least to greatest. Okay, so think about your number line, and you're going to be writing these numbers from least to greatest. Okay, I'll do number 32 with you. Remember, you're going from the least to the greatest, so small to large. So what number here would be the smallest? It would be a negative 5.5, comma. I've used that number. Now, what's next? Yes, it would be a negative 2. What's next on the number line? 4/5 is the next smallest, and the last and the largest would be 7. All right, so again, here's your assignment. And it's going to also be on LMS. You are going to do 7 through 29 odd. Remember your odds, 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so forth. Go through and circle the number there and then do those on paper. Remember to turn those in on LMS. And again, please ask me questions if you have any questions, all right? Thank you and have a great day, guys.